You know those news stories or video clips that just stick with you? Ones that were never resolved and never will be resolved. This right here, this is mine. The weirdest video ever. And before I go any farther, this is for entertainment purposes only. This is my opinion. I'm not stating any of this as fact. There's a lot of weirdness surrounding this case. There's also a lot of misinterpreted information around this case. And I think, unfortunately, some of the misinterpretation clouds the facts. The fact that some of the information from this case can't be explained. Now, most people would say, oh, a lot of this stuff is just coincidence. But you know how I feel about coincidence. For instance, here's Heche. And here's the lady whose house she crashed into. What a coinky dink. And if you've not read the transcripts from the fire department and dispatch, I would highly suggest that you do. She sat in that car for 45 minutes with them standing there. Because for over 20 minutes, they didn't realize that there was a person in there. And then for another 20 minutes, they couldn't get her out. And I'm not saying that there's anything abnormal about that, except for the lack of paramedics. And yes, some firefighters are also paramedics. But this was the scene of a vehicle crash. Wouldn't an ambulance be automatically sent there? And maybe I just do not understand how the body works in a situation like this, but you have sternal fractures that lead to your cause of death, along with smoke inhalation and thermal injuries, but you're able to still pop up out of what looks like a body bag. And I understand people are like, that's like a thermal blanket, but someone who is quote unquote alive and breathing with smoke inhalation, you're going to cover their face up? And she did not have an oxygen mask on. Again, maybe those questions have been answered, but there's a lot of questions that have not been answered. In fact, I've listened to a couple of podcasts recently where people were re-talking about this case because it's weird. And there's a lot of weird stuff surrounding it still. What are your thoughts on this, and do you have any answers for me? The craziest thing to me is that no one can answer the question of why her face was covered. People can pick apart the video and, oh, the firefighters did this because of this, and blah, 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 which is fine, that's what should happen. But no one can seem to answer the question of why her face is covered and she doesn't have oxygen. There's a reason for that, because she shouldn't. She should not have her face covered, and she should have oxygen. Smoke inhalation was listed as one of the 3 causes of her death, and her entire face should not have been covered, period. Now, I'm not a paramedic, and neither is ChatGPT, but I asked her anyway. I asked if someone has smoke inhalation and burns, would paramedics cover their entire body, including their head, face, and mouth? Number 1 priority is airway and breathing, obviously. The number 1 thing that they would do is make sure the person can breathe. They'll give a high-flow oxygen mask. If the airway is swelling or burned, they may need to intubate. Being stuck in a smoldering car for 40 minutes. They don't wrap the face, mouth, or nose because that would block breathing. If there's facial burns, they might loosely cover areas to protect from infection and keep the patient warm. But the airway always stays clear. And in my mind, there's only 2 reasons why they would have her face and mouth covered. 1, some kind of malpractice, which is concerning. And 2, they did it on purpose because they did not want her alive. Period. So yeah, it's super weird that no one can answer that question for me. And they can explain everything else away. They can't explain that away. It is kind of funny watching people let themselves be gaslit or gaslight themselves.